live on Facebook. Good afternoon. Welcome. It's Wellness Wednesday. I love to say that because it's a great opportunity for you to receive some great teachings, to glean and grow, to get mentally strong and healthy so that you can be greater success, experience greater success in your business, and you can be present for your business. So good afternoon. Who's this lady? I'm Beth Copeland with Georgia Christian Business Network, and our vision is to put God back in business. And the way we approach that is the holistic approach. So that's part of where Wellness Wednesdays was born, because we understand that Take Charge Tuesday isn't enough to just put outstanding presenters on our platform that are able to speak into your life, great business acumen. But once you get that, there's a greater opportunity where the enemy wants to steal your joy because it's not happening the way it's happening in the lives of other business owners. So we prayed about that. God just did a download, I like to call it, and said, you've got these wonderful counselors that are members of Georgia Christian Business Network. Put them to work on the platform. And they were willing to accept and be a part, because we understand that business can be tough, life can be tough, and you are in essence your business. So we are so excited that we invited initially Rich Oswald, who is an LPC, and Pamela Bridgman Bartell, who is an LCSW, and our regular host. And we have something special. This month, we have an added, a plus one, if you will. And that's Dr. Karen Bourg. She is also a Georgia Christian Business Network corporate sponsor. So I want to do what we always do on the platform. We promote their bios and tell you what they look like on paper, those credentials, which are necessary. But what we like to do on the day of Wellness Wednesday is allow them an opportunity to introduce themselves from their heart and tell you who they are, what they do, and why it's important for you to know that. Okay, so we know how we do it today. Also, Rich, you're going to do our intro. So Karen, after you introduce yourself, you want to recap where we're going with this powerful topic on confidence this month. Thank you guys so much.
Sounds good. All right. And Beth's going to go heat up her coffee because she doesn't like the iced coffee. I just going to put ice cubes in it. Maybe she's going to put ice cubes in it instead of using the microwave today. I don't know. Branching out. See you later, Beth.
Go away. See you later. I'm going to get you.
You have to know where you're going. Yeah, but my name's Rich Oswald. As Beth said, I'm a LPC, which stands for Licensed Professional Counselor in the state of Georgia. I operate a Legacy Counseling Center in a little town called Snellville, which is getting to be bigger and bigger over on the east side of Atlanta. And Legacy Counseling kind of looks at the idea of the legacy we inherited and be able to change that so the legacy we leave is better than the one we may have gotten, or it's just better supporting the one we want to give. So that includes dealing with little issues that may be interrupting that legacy, or larger issues that have sustained a legacy to us that we do not want to continue, but we're having a hard time changing it to be the legacy we want. And work with individuals, couples, families from adolescence on different formats to help achieve those goals. And I also have degrees in mechanical engineering, experience in auto mechanics, construction, and been married for since 98, do the math, 23 years. I think that's what it equals. I have 4 daughters and loving them a lot. They're pretty amazing kids. So anyway, Dr. Karen.
So I'm Karen Lindwall Bourg. I, like Rich, am a licensed professional counselor. I have a PhD in family therapy, which only raises eyebrows with people like Rich and Pam, who are like, what, what the two together, how does that work, and that sort of thing. But I wanted And I'm glad I got it. I wanted a broader view, a more systemic view, a view of family, a view of groups and everything, more than just counseling with individuals. And so that's kind of where I came from. I opened a private practice and realized pretty quickly that if you build it, they will come. Doesn't work. And that no one ever taught me really how to run a business. And it's a complicated thing, as we all know. That's why we're here. So started a little group and then blended that group with what I'm with now, which is the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs, through which I met Beth. Our entire theme for the year is confidence. And so it was just really appropriate for me to kind of pop in and join in. These have been amazing conversations. So as a little recap, the first week, we just kind of defined what confidence meant in the first place. Last week, we talked about how do you build and sustain confidence in life, and especially through trials, which really can throw a monkey wrench in the business. And then this week, Rich is talking about how do you gain confidence in business. And then in the end, the last week, God will talk us through Godfidence. So a little recap from last week, and I'm going to skim through it really quickly because you can go back and listen to the replay, and I want Rich and the rest of us to have time to really focus in on business, your ministry, your service, and that sort of thing today. Last week, our key verse was Proverbs 3:26, for the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. We talked about how to have and sustain confidence in life, because you've got to hear from the Lord. You've got to believe what he says. You have to respond to him in obedience. Take that step of faith, because your life and especially through trials, but also in your work, has to begin with who God is and who he says we are in Christ. Then we also talked about how to build and sustain confidence through trials. We know how a trial can shatter your confidence in a split second. We have to overcome, I'm going to say moment by moment, daily at least, trials and sufferings. We've got to triumph over deception and lies in our culture and overcome obstacles in our daily life, because struggles in life are universal to us all. And yet no one struggles, suffers, grieves exactly the way that you do. It's a very unique experience, which makes us sometimes feel alone and unsure and lacking in confidence. I started to say unconfident. I'll have to go see if there's a word for unconfident. One of my just really quickly greatest takeaways, there were so many things, you need to go back and listen to that replay, was a reminder from really all four of us, and even from Pam, who wasn't able to be with us that day, to remember when your confidence is shattered, that there are always times that God gave you perhaps even a supernatural confidence to work through a particular situation. In fact, I was reminded, as we talked about that, of a really crucial time in my career when I stood up for what was right. And it all worked out in the end, and it was very atypical of me. I felt like the Lord was with me at that time. Mm-hmm. And then we walked through Asaph's crisis of confidence, I'm going to say, in Psalm 77, and how he, cried out, I don't think you're even there, Lord. And then how he just kept crying out to the Lord, kept remembering, kept seeking. Remembering was the key. And remembering how great God had been during difficult times in his life and the lives of Israel in general, to rebuild his confidence. He even said in one of those verses, I think it was verse 11, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your wonders of old. And from that remembering, he gained the confidence that he needed. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where we're going. As we talk specifically about your business and your ministry today. Lots of overlap, right? Mm-hmm. But looking forward to it.
For sure. Yeah, it's kind of a focused, specific area. We've been sort of narrowing it down as we've gone along. What is confidence? What does it look like? And then, how do we go through it personally, through trials? Now, business, which really overlaps because business is often personal as well. I think historically, a friend of mine and I talked about this, but there's been and of an idea that your business and your personal life are separate, which in some ways they are, but they're not really, because you bring yourself to your business. So wherever you are is where you are in business typically as well. If you're having a hard time at home, you're going to probably have a challenging time at work as well. So keeping that in mind as we're going through this, the individual, the personal overlaps with the business a fair amount. So you can kind of integrate what we did last week with trials and growing and how to sustain confidence through that, with now looking at it from a more specifically business focused perspective. And so I just wrote a few notes I thought I'd start with, and going back to the beginning of February, that said, what idea is confidence? It's being certain something is going to happen. It's not wishful thinking or coming up with an idea and asking God to bless it and think he's going to do what we think he should and what we want him to do. That it is more being assured of something that he's given us to do, and it's going to happen regardless. And particular long-term view of that can be, salvation and our destiny to be with him for eternity, and this life is not the end, but it is just the beginning, and there will be a transition to life in a way that it blows our mind compared to what we've been wrestling through on this side of heaven. If this specifically, I thought I would look at some of the different biblical characters and how they applied confidence in their business. And one of the first people that came to mind is the person we follow, right? It's Jesus. And the idea that he came here to do a particular task. He was made aware of it. And through his growing up, I think there was a lot of affirmation of that with him, with his dad, but also with John the Baptist going before him and suggesting what Jesus came to do and who he was. So that was just thinking of why he was here. And it's often a question we have of, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And getting a clear vision of that, I think, can be very challenging in business, but it is a major factor. We don't do in order to figure out who we are. We know who we are, and we do out of that. Especially for guys, that can be confusing. We look for our identity from what we do. But I believe for all of us, it is getting closer to understanding of who we are, and then out of that, we can do what we were called to do. Otherwise, we're just trying to do something that we've made up. And that's not always really going to happen. It's just our putting forth the effort to try to make something happen that confidence wise, we're not really sure is going to happen, because we're the ones that came up with it. And there's way too many variables. Right? As the engineer in me talks about, it's not an A plus B equals C equation. There are a lot more things that factor in there, and they're not just single variables or just taken to the first power. They're exponential, they're logarithmic, they're all kinds of effects that happen in there, and there's lots of things that are outside of our control. But if we know God has wired us in a particular way and given us a mission, we think to figure that out, and we can have confidence that whatever that mission is going to occur. That one of the things is, I think Jesus he knew what he was going to do, and he even really knew how he was going to do it. But as I was thinking about that, I think we're familiar with him in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he had some thoughts about modifying the way he was going to do what he was supposed to do, right? Hey, Dad, could we try something else other than this whole crucifixion thing? Because I'm really not digging that so much now that it's like tomorrow. But not my will, but your will be done. And coming back to focus, even for him, the full man, full God, had the human moment that said, okay, I understand why you brought me here, but I'm not real keen on how we're getting there. But tying that in the last week of the trials and tribulations and the confidence, Jesus in the middle of that trial, which none of us can really grasp anywhere near the significance and power of that trial, but he continued on in the persevering and the confidence that his dad was doing what his dad what said he was going to do. So there's a little overview from where I'm coming from. So ladies, questions, comments? I think you're muted, Beth.
I forgot to unmute when I got back from getting my coffee, as you let everyone know today. Okay, so I owe you for that. But
Ice in the overwarmed coffee. Maybe that's what you did. If it's too hot, you can put ice in, you can drink it sooner.
I love your lead in, and it really brought to mind and what I want to share, which is out of and along those lines, it's the will of God that we really want to see happening in our lives and in our businesses. And I'm going to I'm going to back us up from that point in Gethsemane. I want to go back to really when there was an opportunity for the Feast of the Passover, still along the lines of having Jesus as our model. And, he was 12 years old at that time. And basically, the statement that he made in I think it's the 49th, in the 49th verse. But I just love what he said. Why do you seek me? Did you not know that I had to be about my Father's business? And when I heard Rich saying that, I was like, oh, God, you have a plan today. I don't know who's over there in Facebook land, but okay, I see an opportunity that Toby, Angela, thank you guys so much for joining us. There are several people there. Please identify yourself. Dr. Jess, thank you for being out there. I know Lisa has an opportunity. She's traveling, but I can't figure that girl out because she's traveling, but she's working, but she's supposed to be on vacation, her and John alone, away from the kids. This is great. But any rate, sometimes she'll pop in and handle stuff for me, like last night and such. But any rate, thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. Get your pen and pencils ready because God has a plan today. I mean, and we're all a part of it because Rich just ministered to me, and there is absolutely no way that he could know that I was going to talk about the 49th verse on Luke 2. Most of us are familiar with Luke 2 and how that starts off and such, but this is the point at 12 years old. And I don't know when you become of age for business, but I know that I received in my spirit, this is when he became of age. All of the preparation, all of the vision, it was starting to come into work because he lingered behind when it was time to go home. And he said, I've got to be about my Father's business, so to speak. And so when you think about it, he did where Rich opened us and backing it up, the space in between and what happened prior to that is he was about his Father's business. He understood, like Erica Jackson talked with us last week on Take Charge Tuesday, the assignment. What I'd like for you to think about as we walk through this and as the counselors and I, talk with you today is an opportunity is to understand your assignment and the preparation period and how what God has called you to do could question your confidence level. Okay, because when you think about Jesus, playing along with the route that Rich has opened us to, that was an opportunity where Rich introduced us, where Jesus could have questioned his confidence in what God said. But because he got to the point to say, nevertheless, are you at a nevertheless? Or how do you handle your nevertheless? Not my will, but thine will be done. You have to understand your assignment and who has given you the assignment. Does that make sense in what I'm trying to say? Because back it up to where I'm telling you, he was certain, he was confident. What happens along the way is he was going from glory to glory. He was so excited. What I interpreted at verse 49. There's no way we could have set this up like this, okay? Because this thing is blessing me. There's him saying, hey, I'm confident. I know. Don't you know that I must be about my Father's business? And then we're over here and all of this stuff has happened. And he said, Father, can I pass beyond what you've assigned to me? Does this make sense where I'm going? And so the opportunity is to be confident in business, is to understand who has called you to do business.
Yeah, it is founded in that. Go ahead, Karen. Go ahead.
I was thinking, there's that question. Okay, well, can I actually have a supernatural confidence on the same level that Jesus did, because he was fully man, fully God, right? And part of me is sitting here thinking, I'm sure other people are too. Well, I'm not sure. Can my confidence be as grounded, as sure as his was? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, it can, because we're his, right? Because we know him, we know who he is, we know who we are in Christ because we're his. And we're talking about scriptural examples, but I have a personal example as well. I've been widowed and remarried, so I have a first father-in-law and a second father-in-law. My first father-in-law and father-in-law and mother-in-law served as missionaries in Guatemala for 46 years and stayed there and retired there, which mission boards don't really like for you to do, but they still felt like those people were their people, that ministry was their ministry. They weren't retired per se. And then they came here when they began to be older and ill and needing modern medicine and that sort of thing. And he lives just a few miles down the road from us, a true blessing in our family. But he tells a story about hearing God's voice as a 6-year-old and not in a believing family. And the Lord saying to him, you're going to serve me in missions on a foreign field. And he just kind of harbored that hearing in his heart until he met the Lord when he was 19. So can you imagine? But I think one of the reasons they were so successful in their ministry and their service to the Lord as foreign missionaries is because he had that remembrance of that confidence, of that calling. He saw, I'm sure there must have been moments, he doesn't talk about them, of questioning, oh my goodness, are you sure? Did I really hear from the Lord? Is this exactly what he called me to do? That's not the way our family is headed. But with every new, he did meet the Lord. He went to college. He went to seminary. He met my mother-in-law, who immediately, when she met the Lord, said, I know God has a special calling and purpose for my life and that sort of thing. And they served together as a team, really as a family team with their 2 sons in really amazing ways. And we have that same confidence. I don't know. I know I need to spend more time in that confidence, right? And remembering how the Lord called me. How did the Lord call you to counseling? How did the Lord call you to corporate sales and marketing, Beth, and then to this, or to GCBN in the first place, to open a counseling practice?
Yeah.
First, right?
Yeah. I know you had a comment, Rich, but just quickly behind Karen, that's a good question to pose for our Facebook crew over there. Jessica, Dr. Jessica, would you ask, how do you know? Because that's the foundation, I think, of your business. How do you know? How did you hear from God? What is your confidence in your calling? How did he speak to you about your business? And to Karen's point, we're telling you scriptures, which is truth and which are given for inspiration in life. The opportunity is personally connecting your story to the scripture and allowing that to play out is going to create an opportunity for you to be more confident in that walk. What was your comment, Rich?
Well, I'll tie in all this together because the confidence that I have is that verse that God began a good work in me and will carry it on to completion. And thinking of Jesus, but then also Karen's first father-in-law and mother-in-law, everybody's story is different, right? And the clarity of the direction, the path is all different, and we have to keep that in mind too, because I hear stories of Karen's father-in-law, and from 6 years old he gets a word from God and doesn't even necessarily know all that means, especially just being 6, I guess, is how old he was, versus cognitively developing at that point, but not even aware of following Jesus completely. Become a Christian at 19. But then the path there, how did he make the decisions? How did he choose Guatemala? How did that all pan out? That's, specifics of the story. And some people have that's very clear. I don't know if he was called to go to Guatemala at 19 or whatever, but it became so certain that they spent 46 years there, stayed on afterwards. It's like, wow, okay. Compare that to, people would compare that and say, well, my life doesn't look like that. I didn't have a specific vision at 6 and then spend 46 years doing the same thing in the same place. As I'm looking at the 3 of us and going, yeah, no, that's not our story. None of us went 46 years doing the same thing in the same place. It just didn't happen. We all have our own stories. Even in the intro, Karen described going from private practice to then being in the business, part drawing her in, and then the organization for Christian business women, right? It's like, oh, okay, how did you, what was your vision 20 years ago? It's, God told me I'm going to be running an organization for Christian business women. That was, maybe it was, but I didn't have that, and mine was very, very unclear. And I go from auto mechanic son to mechanical engineer to carpenter, back to engineer, back to the handyman, and then counseling and handyman. And still confused, but just doing the next thing. But there wasn't clarity. But I can still go back to that verse of confident he who began a good work in me is carrying on to completion. So a lot of the journey, because I tell clients, God's more concerned about our heart than our circumstances. And if you put into circumstances, that's what we're doing, where we're working, what tasks we have, what specific education we may be pursuing, or all of that. And to come back and say, okay, I don't know about all these details. I'm doing the next thing, but my bigger confidence is that God's at work in me, despite what I may or may not have a clue about on what I'm doing. Because if you had asked me 30 years ago, where are you going to be? It was not in Georgia running a counseling practice.
Yeah.
That was not anywhere near my radar screen. I was going to be driving a Ford Bronco around, the U.S. and taking adventures in next. As I grew up in Pennsylvania, Georgia was never on a list of places I was going to be. No offense to the South, it just didn't.
It just wasn't in the cards.
Wasn't on the radar screen. I'm not even sure I knew where the South was complete. I just knew it was South, right?
Yeah.
I knew my directions, but that was it. So just my personal experience, and keeping in mind, that we may or may not hear from God for long-term vision for what we're going to be doing, but we may hear for God the next thing. And sometimes that's spoken through circumstances, other people, or right, just our own trial and error for things. And so I can't have confidence just in that, oh, I have this great idea. Because Karen, you mentioned something I have used, and that hasn't played out the same with me. That whole, if you build it, they will come. That was not my experience. I built it and nobody showed up. So I was living in the field of dreams, movie idea, and just more in my own la la land and wishful thinking than really just showing up here and being bombarded with clients. And it's not my story and can bring up a whole bunch of questions. Beth, you're going to say something?
Yeah, because we all have varying stories. The opportunity for me, when you went to talking about, auto mechanic, engineer, and, carpentry, handyman, I started, you took me back. You took me way back there, when I was in high school, and volunteering for the Red Cross. And then I saw blood one day and I about fell out because I just knew I was going to be a nurse. But, young, not thinking, can't do this, So that wasn't it. And then I went to a secretary. Can you imagine me being someone's secretary? but and then I end up and I land this what's next, like you say, fast forward, and I'm the Southeast Regional Credit and Collections Manager. And people still can't believe that I was in collections when I tell them my background, because they can't imagine me in the role. But I got my money every month. I met my goal. But because I was unique in my approach to collections, but that's another story. But all of that. And then all of a sudden, I'm a big girl now. I get I've got an entrepreneurial spirit from my father, my late father. And, so I'm going to start business, and people like my cooking. So I'm going to be a caterer. So I think, well, because I can cook good, people start saying, will you make me shrimp salad? Will you make this? Pecan pies? And okay. So I started catering weddings, and people didn't pay me. Not invested in their food because I didn't understand business. No, but long story short, what I learned, fast forward, then I started selling eel skin because I liked the purses, and I found a place in Korea that I could, it's a whole story. So then I learned about going into business in collaboration with other people. Don't do it with your friends, okay? Because, and we did these eel skin parties, and people would place these orders. So fast forward. So then I go back to catering, and then I go, okay, what is it? Because this is what I want to use, and I'm going to pick on the catering piece. Listen, what Rich said about doing what's next, but just because you have a passion for it, and my passion really wasn't for cooking, I learned that the Lord blessed me to cook well because my family enjoyed my food and my friends, but I didn't have to go out and cater weddings and never get paid for them. That was something that really was for me to be able to serve. I enjoyed serving more than I did cooking. But I didn't know that. And so I like what Rich says, what's next? The opportunity where I want to land at is something that I really, and I want to get to a Facebook comment, is something that I really looked at. What we were in search of is often in business, and to have confidence in the way we measure whether we're success in business is whether or not we're bringing in revenue and we're successful. The thing that I think we strive in more than thrive in is trying to obtain wealth. And so I mentioned to the group last night, the team here, when I was talking, a scripture that's very important. And when I learned this scripture, truly learned and embraced it, and it is our banner scripture for GCBN, Deuteronomy 8:18. And some people said, God has given you the power to get wealth. But I like to quote the entire scripture. It starts with but, meaning there's something else in addition to what was said previously. In all of your getting, you have to get understanding. And it goes on with another word, remember. It starts, but remember. In all that you experience and all that you obtain to, if you're identifying your business with an opportunity that you can become wealthy, you have to do, but remember, it is the Lord, their God, that powers you, that empowers you, that gives you the power to get wealth. And it's not you yourself, because see, sometimes we have a tendency to believe that it is we that have made us. And no, it is He that has made us, and not we ourselves. And He will confirm His covenant when you get to that place that you understand that it is God that has given you the power to get wealth. Of all of your accolades and your achievements, your accomplishments, if you go through life thinking that I can make myself something, no, that I can empower myself, no, it's God that gives you the power, and therefore needs to be our energy and our fuel that drives our success. You follow me?
Mm-hmm. And I'm a kind of a stickler sometimes for defining your terms too, and managing the culture, because I hear that, and you may your own definition, Beth, and I hear that. I go to the culture that's kind of in our own humanness that says wealth. Well, that means a lot of money, and I can kick back and just live the good life and have everything I need and want. And some of that is probably accurate to what wealth is, but I'm not sure in God's economy, upon may wanted, that wealth is what we think it is, because there's very limited amount of people who have so much money they can just kick back and live on the interest, right? So it's kind of wrestling through that too, that says, what is wealth? Because when you ask people who have made a lot of money, right, if they're really satisfied, most studies seem to indicate they're not, and
They're not.
more stressed, having a more financial resources than they were when they didn't. That we're still kind of captivated by that idea of wealth. Then some of us, if not a lot of us, go into business with that kind of mentality. I know I had that mentality, plus several others that were much more or were self-focused. I had to prove something. I had to prove somebody wrong or right, and be independent, be selfish, arrogant, whatever. And that doesn't contribute to God giving me the power of wealth. That contributed to me trying to make a point, not really going along with it. And then you said, but remember, right? Remember what God did. And to me, wealth is defined way differently, because you can ask the secular people, like, what was something that they really would have liked to have or wish they would have actually invested in more than just making a lot of income. It was all the relationships, family, friends, spouses. I mean, how many people work themselves right out of a marriage? I know my dad told me that right his first marriage, he worked himself right out of it. Building the business, building houses, building the farm, building everything else, and kind of unbuilt the marriage. So I think he regretted that a fair amount. He had to give up his quarter horse farm where he built a pond and raised quarter horses. And I still have his chaps and his cowboy belt with the big buckle on it and his name printed in the back of it and all that. And I think that was a grievous thing for the next 3 or 4 decades of his life. So for that loss, I think he really had trouble with that for the rest of his life, and became dedicated to making a lot of money and retiring with a specific amount. And although he hit that amount in assets, his life ended to me just as miserable as it was decades before that, when he acknowledged that to me. So there's some life experiences I have with that, keeping in mind and struggling with my definition, but going back to God began a good work in me in that trials. Sometimes that trials means he sort of prevents, good dads, good parent sometimes prevents their kids from getting what they want, because what they want isn't good for them, or it isn't right.
What they need.
The right time for them to receive those things. And having confidence that God's a good dad. That what does that really mean? What is a good parent like? And it's, to me, a huge part when I deal with people as well is, well, what's your vision of a good parent? Because a lot of times we pitch fits because we're not getting what we want, because we think what we want is what we need and what we deserve. But I mean, how many times, if those of us are parents, or if you're not a parent, how many times in your history do you remember pitching a fit or seeing somebody pitching a fit because you didn't get, or they didn't get what they wanted, but you knew from the outside that, well, it really wasn't the best idea, right? And the parents that give in to the kid were more concerned with preventing the kid from having any pain than having the struggle and the learning experience. We call them helicopter parents. We don't respect that. We ask God, well, why do you let this happen? And why did this person get this and I didn't get that? And, right? A good parent is that, well, I don't give you everything you want, because what you think you want, or what you want, isn't what you need. Right? But we have an easy way of comparing to the other person. Well, they're getting and I'm not getting it. And you're a mean God because you let this happen to me. It wasn't a good thing. And you didn't give me this nice thing that I wanted, but I knew it was the right idea. And you're just a big old meanie, right? It's how many of us parents have had that. Well, I hate you, Dad, or I hate you, Mom. You're like, okay, we hate you all you want, but it's still not giving you that because it's not the best for you. And to me, I have to keep that in mind, even in business, all the different things I've tried over the years. I look back and it's like, well, I think God's message and purpose, and just walking with me through that and allowing me to make my choices in certain ways and not getting what I wanted, has served for character development, which is way more important than the money in my bank account. And
this is so good, Rich. And there's so much to unpack about what you've said. And I know Karen probably wants to chime in here as well. But let me say this to just position what you're talking about. Some of the things that you talked about is the parent not giving us those things that we want and desire. Deuteronomy 8:18, and I'm thinking I may have said 28:18, but 8:18. You know, if you look prior to that, in the verses prior to 18th verse, and it talks about this very thing, that, and when this and when that, when you've been successful. So one of the reasons that God does not allow us to receive those things that we think we need, but that are just desires and want, is because they'll take our focus off of Him. Rich also mentioned that we want to unpack a little bit is about how those that have been successful and obtained to wealth in the form of money are not happy. And I've heard story after story. We've saw celebrity world, suicidal death. And you wonder, you know, how could someone name be on these expensive shoes take her life, you know? And, you know, or this person that was such a famous actor that could walk out any character and role and disguise himself, take his life. And, you know, one of the things that I think that we have to be careful with, and I want to just throw out before I transition to Karen to get your comment and your take, a few things that are happening over in the Facebook world, that this is just a great topic here, is sometimes if anything interferes with our relationship with God and that whole thing about wealth, we've got to understand that God's definition of wealth includes peace of mind. And if I don't have peace of mind, when you talk about 3 John 2, beloved, above all things, I pray that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. He's talking about prosperity in totality, you know, where I've got all this money, but I don't have peace of mind. I've got all this money, but I don't have relationship with other people. I don't even have the relationship that I need with God, because there's a separation there. So I just want to throw a few of those things. You're so powerfully on it. And hear what Karen says, but hear these comments Dr. Jess have given me. Let me just give you a couple of things. Karen, you're over on Facebook too. I should have let you just share some of this stuff. Okay. So basically what Angela is saying to us is that God spoke to her heart, and she had more of her passion. Let me get this from Angela. Whoa. God spoke to me very early, but I claimed it as my own passion. When I tried to do it independently, it went nowhere. When I stop and listen, I see progress. I walk in his will and do not lean unto my own understanding. Very, very good opportunity there. Also, I want you guys to comment that. Karen talked about this return on obedience is very, very good. I'm going to let you go into that in just a second as related to return on investment. And then there's an awesome opportunity here that I really want to put this out. I get scared sometimes. This is Angela. I love what I do so much and not looking for money, but I'm so full when I'm serving. I need for nothing. He provides and more. And I really want to allow you, Karen, to speak to that, and then we'll come back in. Okay.
I don't even know where to start. I was looking at Angela's comments as well. Make sure I'm not muted. Yeah. Because I think she hit the nail on the head. If we have to, I think, just gently, without judgment, right, remind ourselves, like Rich kind of said, that we look at success and building and sustaining confidence in our business, in our ministry, most of the time from a worldly perspective. And so it's probably skewed. It's probably upside down. And Angela kind of pointed that out. You know, is this my passion, or was it the vocation? I'm going to say the purpose, the calling, the vocation that God gave me. So if we ask God, you know, where would you start? And do we start? Do we do that? First of all, do we do that? Do we ask God? He's the chief executive of everything, right? Are we having a business meeting with him before we run off and have, after this call, I always have a business meeting with the team. We'll have a Lord first. And there have been times that I've listened to my own counsel. I've even listened to their counsel, and their counsel is very wise, and they know me, they care about me. But I use the word steamrolled off to do something, but I really didn't stop and ask. So I think Angela, I love her comments even last week as well. Need to get to know Angela, because she put it into perspective. You know, does it start with God's passion for us, or have we even stopped and met with him? Do we know what he's calling us to do? Is this my passion? Is this his passion? And I thought, you know, if you look at things from in a business and ministry perspective, from God's perspective, he's going to say, I'm going to throw this out there at you. We all have the same purpose. I even believe an unbeliever, non-believer has the same purpose given by God, which is to revere and fear God and keep his commandments, from Ecclesiastes 12. To go and make disciples, I'm going to use the navigator's term, to know him and make him known, right? Everyone's purpose is the same. So we don't have to question that. But everything I do, GCBN, purpose, goal, to put God back in business, stems from who God is and from making him known. NACWE, to work God's way as Christian women entrepreneurs, Christian counselors, right, Rich, to seek God's solutions to life's problems. But then we all have a calling, and that calling is different. And someone even said, I think, Rich, you said it earlier, it is different. It's different. Our stories are different, and that's okay. We can learn from one another, but our story still has to stem from what God has done in our lives. In the way that I got to counseling, I didn't start out that way. I started out in the medical, anything to do with counseling. But then we all have a calling. And what's that calling? Is it, I'm just going to throw a few things out there at you, to live, to persevere through these trials we talked about last week, to serve in your work, in your business, in your ministry, whatever, in ways that honor God and draw other people closer to him in your work. And aren't we more excited? We have to make money. I think wealth is very important. It's important to God. He has set us up in a monetary system. So of course he cares that we have money to pay our bills, to pay the people who work for us, to send our kids to college, to, right? Of course he cares. But he also cares, like Beth said, about the impact, and Rich said it too, Angela just said it too, about the impact that we make in the world he's placed us in. So what's our calling? To walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which we've been called, and everyone has a calling. Make no mistake, we have been called to do something specific. There's scripture, Romans 11, that says your gifts, your talents, and your calling of God is
without
irrevocable.
repentance.
You can,
without repentance.
You're not gonna, it's not gonna leave you. It's there. But he calls us to be diligent, 2 Peter 1. Then he reminds us that his plans for us, we talk about Jeremiah 29:11 all the time, that his plans for us are good, for a future and a hope. But then I also think, we all have this different calling, but we all have a different vocation. GCBN is a ministry, a service, more than it is a vocation. And that word vocation comes from the Latin vocare, which means to call, like a summoning. God has summoned you, a unique person, to this unique purpose, calling, vocation, whatever you want to call it. Are we starting with, ask God, what have you called me to do? And am I doing it? And how many times, I love, Rich, earlier you said something like, I still get confused sometimes. And I thought, oh, I'm so relieved, to hear someone else admit that it can be confusing and that we have questions constantly. But you also said, and somebody typed it into the comments, it was like, just do that next thing. What was it? It was,
I think
what's
Rich
next?
said do the next thing. Didn't you talk to that? Rich spoke to that. Yeah.
Do what's next. And sometimes that means taking things out for a spin, and that's okay. I think we need permission. Did he leave us? No, there he is.
And sometimes that means, I know for me, is sometimes the next thing is a new thing, an opposite thing, right? Like instead of that whole doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Sometimes I have the desire just to throw my hands up and say, fine, I'll just keep doing this thing that's driving me crazy, not producing a lot of results, but there's not a lot of hope to do something else. But then sometimes it's, well, let me throw this stuff out there. Let me try something new. Let me see where this goes, and coming to the fact that, what I've been trying to do isn't really what I'm supposed to be doing, because it's not working. If it was working, it would be working. So it's coming to terms with that. And why was I doing it the way I was doing it? What was I expecting? Sometimes I've gotten into the wishful thinking. Come from a family with addiction in its history, and have my own kind of flavor of addictive type stuff. But addictive thinking, right, is really that I kind of get what I want when I want it, and I don't have to do a lot for it. Right? Or somebody's going to hand me something. And I think I've had to come more to terms with that too, that, hey, through this whole experience, God's brought up that whole refining fire and the dross coming to the top, kind of accepting some of the, hey, that is what I've been looking for. And because of that, I didn't do certain things and did do other things. And I've gotten what happens when you do addictive thinking is it really doesn't play out well. You end up being held accountable for stuff that didn't work. Right? Addicts have to come to a point where it's like, what I've been doing really is just causing a mess, and it's done out of my neediness, my lack of being responsible, my lack of confidence in myself, a lot of pain I've experienced that I'm trying to avoid, or things I'm trying to prove somebody else wrong with, and owning that, and then saying, giving up that, well, I can't keep doing that. That doesn't work, right? It's not the way God designed it. I'm owning it all myself. And, a lot of us, I think, in business can go to that. There's a reason why, what is it? It's some astronomical percentage, like 80% of businesses fail within the first 2 or 5 years or something like that. right? Well, there's lots of reasons why, but I think some of it is because, I'm not alone in saying, wait a minute, I'm getting paid this much to do this job, but if I go do it on my own, I'm going to make like twice as much. So what exactly am I getting for the half that I'm giving you? Because I like this whole, like, all of it coming to me kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then you do that, and I'm like, Karen, I love it. You went into business and recognized, I have no idea what I'm doing. Nobody's ever talked to me about this. And yay, counseling, but that's not what I do when I own my business. And I think that's why a lot of businesses fail, is we do the business because of what the business is doing, but forget the idea that business is really not doing what you like to do. It is often trying to do things you don't like to do, aren't good at, and they don't work well. So you have to go back to doing whatever you like to do for somebody else because that works best. So anyway, I could go on and on.
This is so good. I want to throw in a couple of things. That seemed like an hour goes so fast. We started perfectly on time, but I have to throw in a couple of things. And all of that we've said here today is knowing the power and ability, and coming directly behind Rich, knowing where your power and ability. We're going to talk some more next week, and I'm going to introduce to some, enlighten others concerning a term, Godfidence. Okay. And Karen, that information, I want to talk to you about that as soon as possible, that we talked to related to Godfidence and the research. But the opportunity that I want to interject for those of you that are listening right now, it is so important that you understand Philippians 4:13. I can. Yes, I can. My husband for years, Dr. Jess could attest to it over on the Facebook side of the house. My husband would never let them say, I can't, I can't, I can't. He always, he would, this is strong. And that was his discipline. I can. And understanding the power that you have through Christ who provides you the strength. And that would be a great lead in for next week as well. But the thing that I want to say about what Rich is saying is those things, and even Karen, the gift and callings are without repentance, or what was your translation? Irrevocable. They are what God has given you. And I believe in all that I told you, the nursing in Karen, I was trying to figure it out in caring from others. The food, I wanted to serve, and I did it well through cooking. People loved and enjoyed my cooking. The opportunity, I tried in the 4th grade, and they said that I spoke well, and they wanted me to narrate the play. And I think I've told you guys before, it was Luke 2 for the Christmas program, in school. And the scenarios and scenes were happening, and I was done within 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I had, everything was over, and the plays and then that was happening because I was so nervous. You never could have told me that I would be on a platform like this, or speaking, going to places like NACWE and GGG, and having those types of things. Why are you telling us this, Beth? And I need to slow down because I'm talking fast because I know we're running out of time. But I have to tell you that each one of those things that I experienced plays a part. Initially starting GCBN, we didn't have sponsors. We didn't have Chick-fil-A and Mark Treadwell providing us chicken platters. So I had to cook things. And I used that skill of knowing how to arrange things, and how God, the Karen and Karen opportunities, they came into play each time. The things that I thought I needed for secretarial, all of those came into play, but it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. It was doing what was next, as we talked about. And then even to hear what Rich just said about the power and the ability, you can, through Christ, do all things. But I think the opportunity is do not become stagnant, and to know and to be confident more in who God's called you to be than in who you're trying to be within yourself. And so when I looked up something about Philippians 4:13, I believe that you have to understand, and all of us have to get to the point to know that when we talk about this, there will be times in your business when you will need to force yourself to stretch beyond what you think is possible, is what Rich said. You can do it, and know that we believe in you. Can I tell you something more important than that? God's counting on you. Yes, he is, to walk out the truth. Now, there are a couple of comments that I want to mention from the Facebook. Hello, Bernice. How are you, Bernice Lohman? Wonderful. Hi, Ty. How are you? You listen, ladies, I need you to come for our GGG virtual clinic. I was going to reach out to you, but we'll talk about that in a second. Erica Jackson, I love it. Each unique person has a unique calling. I love it. Thank you so much for so much activity there over on the Facebook side of the house. Dr. Jess for manning that for us. This has been so outstanding. I just love it. Karen, Rich, you guys good? Yeah.
We could go on forever.
We could.
We're out of time. I got a client. I got to go.
I know we've got clients. I've got an appointment at 1:15. But listen, thank you guys. This is great. Let me just do a little housekeeping here. Please come back. Our final discussion on confidence next week, Wednesday. I had a little snippet, but you just gonna have to come back and get it next week. Confidence right here, noon for Wellness Wednesday. But don't bypass Take Charge Tuesday. Next week, we are so excited. Sabrina Reynolds. Y'all, she's a GCBN member for a long time now, and she is outstanding. And she's going to talk about elevation now for our Take Charge Tuesday platform. Told you about Wednesday, but let me back it up to this Friday. We've got a great opportunity for Nicole Hughley. She's going to speak to us at noon nugget on this Friday. Tune in. Great treats. And please, ladies, invite friends. GGG virtual clinic. Be in the house. Taylor Allen is going to walk us through another opportunity for a virtual clinic. We've got some testimonials for different people that attended GGG 2021 at Chateau Elan. Our dates are August 26th through the 28th. This event is important. It's free Saturday morning at 9:30 till 11. On virtual, but we're going to be, Dr. Jess is still in town. She's going to join me here at Cornerstone. If you want to join us, please reach out to me and let me know, because you can join us here. And if you're coming, I'll have coffee and some donuts for us. That's all we need is some donuts, right? But anyway, so the opportunity is why you need to attend on Saturday. We have not only early bird registration, but there's some other discounts that are going to be available to you as well. We're giving away prizes. You know how we give. So come, sign up, join us for the virtual clinic. Listen, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We need your help. Visit our website, GCB, as in Georgia Christian Business Network.com. We're looking for opportunities to have you undergird us as a sponsor of our network, or we just need you to just join us as a member of this great organization. Help us. We're putting it out there. This Wellness Wednesday platform, please share it with others so that they can be encouraged as well. But help us to undergird our business, our vision to put God back in business. We need you as a member. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hey, Tony Guy, sorry we got to go now, but please listen to the replay. Take care, guys. Love you. Bye-bye.